I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the ETSU Board of Trustees meeting. It has been an eventful semester, and I would be remiss if I did not first acknowledge the devastation our region has experienced as a result of Hurricane Helene. As was mentioned this morning, numerous ETSU students and employees were directly affected, and I think everyone in this community knows at least one person who experienced loss as a result of the hurricane. Yet amid the grief we have all been experiencing, I'm proud to say that the people of Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, and Western North Carolina have demonstrated profound resilience coming together to recover and rebuild. ETSU has played an important part in regional recovery, and I would like to highlight a few initiatives that I think exemplify our mission. First, our students, faculty, and staff, in partnership with Marsh Regional Blood Center, organized the largest two-day blood drive ever to be held in the entire region. Nearly 700 individuals donated blood, many standing in line for at least 6 hours or more to do so. Second, I would like to thank ETSU's administration for working quickly to support those affected. In a matter of days, ETSU was able to donate more than 800 hot meals to flood survivors and first responders, open the CPA to provide access to hot showers, activate student and employee crisis funds, and provide free housing and meal plans for students and employees in need. Staff members personally called and emailed more than 6,000 students from flood-affected areas, and managers across campus immediately started reaching out to check on employees. I'd also like to thank our faculty and staff for quickly mobilizing to bring ETSU's expertise to the field to support flood recovery efforts. Staff from our Emergency Management Office and ETSU Serves have been helping train and coordinate volunteers. Faculty have been mapping storm damage and providing water quality testing, and physicians from ETSU Family Medicine reached out individually to check every patient in their system who lives in a flood-affected area, making on-site wellness checks if they were unable to reach them. I'd also like to remind everyone that the university has given every full-time staff member an additional 15 hours of leave to allow them to volunteer in the community. And I encourage everyone to take advantage of that opportunity and continue supporting recovery efforts, which undoubtedly will take years. Now onto a very bright note. We're just days away from when our very own Marching Bucks head to New York City to perform in the 2024 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. We've arranged for a send-off party for them on the night of November 24th at 10:45 p.m. I know that's past many of our bedtimes, but if you are available, I encourage everyone to turn out and share warm wishes with our world-class marching band, whose members have worked so incredibly hard to get to this point. We'll meet in front of the University School at 10:45 p.m. to wish them well as they depart at 11 p.m. to drive all night to New York for a week of rehearsal and performances. You can follow their journey at etsu.edu/parade, and that webpage will also allow you to watch the parade if you're not able to attend. Finally, I'd like to offer congratulations to our very own Trustee White, who is a finalist for the prestigious Rhodes Scholarship. We should know this weekend whether or not Mr. White is selected for the scholarship. We certainly are hoping for the best, but regardless, even being named a finalist for this award is a truly exceptional accomplishment. This is the second year in a row that an ETSU student has been in the running for the Rhodes, demonstrating both the high caliber of students we attract here at ETSU and the excellent education our university provides. I'd like to take a moment to thank and commend each of you in this room, across campus, and throughout our community for helping to build something truly special at East Tennessee State University. Thank you, and I'll now turn to Dr. Green to take the roll.
Trustee Allen.
Here.
Trustee Ayers. Here. Trustee DiCarlo. Here. Trustee Fry-Clark. Here. Trustee Grisham. Here. Trustee Ramsey. Trustee Segal-Jones.
Here.
Trustee Treadway.
Here.
Trustee White. Chair Latimer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. Dr. Green, do we have any individuals who have signed up to speak to the board as part of the public comment portion of the agenda?
You do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so next we will turn to the approval of the minutes from September 13, 2024. Trustees, you'll find minutes from our September meeting in your materials. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Second? Question, comments, edits, or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next, we got a report from the Academic Research and Student Success Committee. Earlier this morning, this committee met, and I'll turn to Trustee Ayers for that update of her committee's work.
Thank you, Chair Latimer. This morning, our committee met. There were 3 action items and 3 information items. Provost Kimberly McCorkle presented a request to approve tenure for appointment of Dr. Dina Evans, who is our incoming Dean of the College of Nursing, who will begin her role at ETSU in January. Dr. Evans has over 20 years of nursing leadership experience and most recently served as Vice Dean of Faculty and Academic Affairs in the College of Nursing at the University of South Florida. Based on her outstanding academic and leadership record, the committee voted to approve tenure upon appointment for Dr. Evans, and we're thrilled to have her joining us in January. Next, Provost McCorkle presented a request to approve a new Bachelor of Science in Digital Development degree program, which is a collaboration between the Department of Digital Media and the Department of Computing. This innovative program will allow students to develop programming and design skills that will enhance their work opportunities upon graduation. The new program will be the first degree in Tennessee to provide students with the full array of skills and experience to be full-stack developers upon graduation. The program is expected to attract new students to ETSU and will be a strong addition to the ETSU portfolio of degree offerings. The committee voted to approve this program, which will be presented to THEC in the spring of 2025, so it could begin as soon as the fall of 2025. This is a great opportunity and demonstrates how ETSU is being flexible and meeting workforce needs in real time. Provost McCorkle also presented a request to approve the new institutional accreditation policy. The new policy holds that the university can select any institutional accreditor recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. Pursuant to Tennessee law, the board is required to approve an institutional policy before December 31, 2024. Our committee voted to approve the new policy. Our first information item was from Dr. Hoff and Provost McCorkle, and they presented the results of our 23-24 quality assurance funding process and provided an explanation of ETSU's performance on the 6 standards that apply to ETSU. The 23-24 cycle, ETSU achieved a perfect score on all but 2 standards, and the overall score of 96 over 100, which is quite impressive, placed ETSU second among locally governed institutions for the 2nd year in a row. It is important to note that the current year, 24-25, will be the last year of the 5-year quality cycle, meaning a new set of standards will be released for the 25-26 years. And it's not just about quality, it also impacts our funding, so it's critically important to the university. The next information item was presented by Lieutenant Colonel Jeffers, the Executive Director of the Roan Scholars Leadership Program, and Dr. Carson Medley, Director of the Office of Prestigious Awards and Scholarship and Scholar Development. They both provided highlights on student success. It was extremely moving and showed the depth and breadth of how we're supporting our students. Mr. Jeffers updated the committee on the Roan Scholars Leadership Program and the recent initiatives of the Signature Program. It is my understanding we had over 1,000 applicants getting ready to interview 150. We're celebrating that this is the 25th year in 2025. Dr. Medley shared some recent initiatives and successes of the past year of the Office of Prestigious Awards, which supports students who seek competitive awards. Chair Latimer just mentioned one, so we're all sending up thoughts and prayers to our own trustee that his interview goes well, but regardless, he is a rock star among our students. Finally, David Golden, CEO of the ETSU Research Corporation, provided the annual update of the Research Corporation and its progress towards building connections between the university and university partners to advance regional prosperity. It highlighted several current initiatives, including Story Collab, the Center for Bioindustrial Manufacturing, the Innovation Lab, the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and K-12 projects and partnerships. We had lively discussion, as always, and it's a good group and a lot of great things happening at ETSU.
Thank you, Trustee Ayers. It was a wonderful committee meeting. Thank you. Next, I will turn to our Trustee DiCarlo for an update on his Finance and Administration Committee meeting.
Good afternoon. The Finance and Administrative Committee met this morning to review several items, and I'm happy to report nothing whatsoever was moving. which I think is a good thing. The committee reviewed a report prepared in compliance with the Tuition Transparency Act. The report is provided to the state legislature each year and demonstrates how tuition revenues were used and the effect on student cost of attendance and financial aid. The committee approved the October 2024 budget revisions, which are included in the board consent agenda and were discussed at length during the committee meeting. The October budget includes an increase in expenditure budgets that arises from the carry forward of funds from the previous year. The funds became available after the university closes the financial accounts for the year and the carry forward dollars are identified. The committee reviewed the quarterly report of contracts and agreements over $250,000 for the first quarter of fiscal 2025. The quarterly report of revenues and expenditures were provided, and variance between the current first quarter and the prior year were discussed. The committee received an update on the Strategic Resource Alignment Advisory Committee. Details on the current work of the advisory committee were discussed, including the budget model recommendations and procedural changes. And lastly, we approved the minutes of the previous meeting run by Governor Ramsey. After struggling, those were approved. And that is my report.
Thank you, Trustee DiCarlo. Finally, I'll turn to Trustee Stigall-Jones.
I don't know how he makes finance
I
funny.
know, I
really
know.
don't, but he does. We'll do my best here.
Good luck with
So, we only had one action item, and that was the internal audit had received two fraud, waste, and abuse concerns. So those two are added, 2503 and 2504. The committee unanimously added those to the audit plan. We always put more on her plate, not less, it seems like. So one audit and one investigation was completed since we last met in September. One of those was the president's audit. This is required annually by Tennessee Code Annotated Title 49, Chapters 7 and 14 to be done annually. The results of that audit were the audit revealed no significant statutory or policy violations, material omissions from the expense reports, or deficiencies in internal control. Another investigation was completed. It was 2502 that we added in September. It was completed pretty quickly and had to do with an outside bank account with the student organization that had ETSU's name in the name of the bank account, but no issues really with that either. So good news on that front. And she gave a report on the log status, the recommendation log status. There are 6 current prior findings that she's still looking at and into. All of those are in green status, which would be they're progressing in a timely fashion. She has identified that the controls over pro card purchases need improvement. That one is in yellow. It's going to take a little while to get that one completed. She's going to give staff and faculty time to get some improvements in there before we go look in there and see that things are looking a little bit better with those pro cards, and I think that'll be fine also. And then lastly, this is a housekeeping requirement. She went over the review of the audit committee responsibilities, and there were no changes in those responsibilities since the prior year, so we took care of that, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stigall-Jones. Trustees, as noted in the materials in your agenda, you will find several routine items, including items acted upon during this morning's committee meetings included on the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull for discussion and consideration by the full board? Hearing none, I would then ask for a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second? Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, carries. Our next segment, we're going to ask Dr. Sherlin to please give us an update on the ETSU Hurricane Helene response, and some of our amazing students are also going to present to give us some experiential learning on what had happened. Thanks.
Well,
it's my privilege to be here with three outstanding student leaders, Morgan Blazer, Skylar Brackett, and Shana Thompson today, to provide a brief update to the board that highlights the campus response in the weeks following Hurricane Helene, and specifically the actions and stories of our students. When the hurricane hit, our students were preparing for homecoming week. Zeta Carver, an undergraduate student who's in the Roan program and who spoke to our parents and families last weekend at Open House, said she was thinking about all the activities that she was going to be participating in homecoming week. And in a matter of hours, she began thinking about how she was going to reach her family and if they were okay in Western North Carolina. Fortunately for Zeta, they were okay, and her home was okay, but her community was not. And she has spent weeks, as soon as she could get over the mountain, delivering items that were collected on this campus and volunteering in her home community. Zeta's story mirrors the story of our students and our faculty and staff, who pivoted on a moment's notice to rise up and do their part to serve the needs of our university and our region. This is a picture of the blood drive that Chair Latimer mentioned, the largest on campus, on the Monday following the hurricane. We were prepared for a large drive, but we were not prepared for the line that arrived that Monday. This picture does not do it justice. It wound around and around the building, and our students would not leave. They waited to donate for hours, up to 6 hours. This building was a beehive of activity, donations rolling in, students and staff everywhere doing what they could to help. As you know, classes were canceled, and the entire week we focused on assessing needs, supporting the community, and the hurricane relief effort. This is a picture of our students who stood outside the dining hall for days and wrote letters to families and first responders impacted by the flood. You heard about this program this morning, and Shana's going to talk in more detail about her experience. The level of care in this community was overwhelming. Dr. Nolan walked into this building and laid eyes on our students on Monday, and what I would say was he saw the beating heart of this institution, and it took his breath away, and he had to step away and collect himself. Our Dean of Students and her team and our faculty and staff, as you heard, checked on thousands of students in affected areas. Between 250 and 275 of our students have been directly impacted. Our university came together to offer whatever support we could offer, from emergency and tuition grants, over $100,000 in supports extended to date, to housing and food assistance. As you heard, showers at the CPA for families who were without water, counseling support to individuals affected by immediate trauma, but also the trauma of what's happened in their communities. This is going to be a recovery that will certainly take a long time. 10 of our students lost family members or loved ones. This has had, as you well know, a tremendous impact on our institution. But our staff, our students, our faculty, our advisors rose to serve. And all of this assistance came together over a 48-hour period. But it didn't happen by accident. This is the picture of the whiteboard put together by our staff in civic engagement, the Roan Scholars, student life, and emergency management on Saturday morning after the current hurricane hit. This meeting was basically to confirm how all the pieces at the university were going to work together and work with our community. And our SGA and student leaders were meeting at the same time on Saturday. Dr. Nolan didn't direct this. He didn't have to. People understood their roles and their mission, and they were here the next morning to carry it out. And this was also possible because our civic engagement team, thank you Nathan Farner and Joy Fulkerson, and our emergency management team, thank you Rusty Sells and Jeff Blanton, had already done the work before we ever got to this day to ensure that our systems were integrated with the systems of this region. And we were positioned to make seamless handoffs to the United Way, to Volunteer United, and to our emergency response services. Because this system that you see here was in place, our university had become the placement vehicle for connecting volunteers to needs in a 5-county region. ETSU has been at the table from the beginning and has had a key support role in driving the relief effort for the region. And to date, this system and our staff have placed over 4,000 individuals serving our region over a 6-week period. It's been a very challenging time, but I've been here 20 years and I've never seen a more inspiring time in our community. I'm going to turn it over to the real heroes, and these are our student leaders, and they can talk about their experiences personally and here at the institution, because they led the institution in many respects. But I wanted to see if the board had any broad questions before I turn it to them.
Dr. Sherlin, I do have a question. I know that our students voluntarily relocated in the residence halls to make rooms available for families who'd been displaced by Hurricane Helene. How many faculty and staff do we have living in the residence halls as we move through the close of the semester?
We've served a handful of students and faculty on both sides, 4 to 5, who've needed various short-term housing. A couple of students have needed housing for the longer term with meals. Most of the faculty have just needed support to come in to be able to teach class. In most respects, they've been able to find housing with friends or in the community and haven't needed the on-campus support, but it's been very much needed and appreciated by the students and faculty who've needed it. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Morgan to start.
Thank you, Dr. Sherlin, for your comments and the wonderful introduction. And also thank you, Board of Trustees, for allowing us to be here and come share our experiences. So, my name is Morgan Blazer. I'm a senior in the Rose Scholars Leadership Program, and I also have the honor and privilege of serving as the Student Government Association's Chief of Staff. So like Dr. Sherlin said, we had a group of students mobilize less than 24 hours after stories came in about the flooding and damage that was occurring throughout the region. And what came of this meeting was, number one, a week-long supply drive that occurred throughout homecoming week. And on Monday and Tuesday, we had plenty of volunteers, not only within SGA proper, but also within our kind of sister organization called Junior Senate, which encourages freshmen and lowerclassmen to get involved in student government as well. So as the day progressed, donations came in, and they came in, and they came in, and they came in some more, until we had the room, I think it's 366, filled. And it was so filled that we had to take the donations from that room to the SGA office. And then that got filled up. So throughout the week, we had students coming to us, not only wanting to volunteer and saying, what can I do to intake supplies? What can I do to help you all? Even staying up to 10 o'clock at night in the Culp to get everything that we needed to get done. But then we had students saying, well, I can't do much, but here's what I can bring. I went to Walmart and here's what they had. And that was so powerful because, like we all know, some students couldn't return home due to damage or no electricity, no water, but they were still doing what they could. And within the early days where we were encouraged not to go out before we were trained, students continued to do what they could. And all of this culminated in a game day supply drive on Saturday, where we had community members, alumni, and other supporters of ETSU continue to pour in to the region. And from that supply drive, we filled an entire Premier bus, which was a lot. And we also had amazing help from, again, staff and faculty from the Office of Leadership and Civic Engagement. Dr. Adinolfi, Mr. Jeffress were integral in helping coordinate this effort with SGA and also coordinating with other organizations such as the WETS radio station. They provided us trailers and boxes for us to transport all of these donations to Bristol Motor Speedway. So it was an amazing opportunity for students to show what they really love about this region and to uplift one another.
Thank you, Morgan. That was a great introduction. My name is Skylar Brackett, and I serve as the Secretary of State for SGA. And when I first heard about this, I started seeing the videos come in on social media about the 107 bridge washing away, along with people being trapped on top of Unicoi County Hospital, and I was just shocked. And I started getting texts from other student leaders saying, we need to meet right now, and I couldn't agree more. So, like Morgan said, we met that Saturday, and we knew that we wanted to pivot the focus of homecoming week. And so we really worked that day to pivot the focus and start looking at some initiatives that we could do to serve the community. And so we looked at expanding the blood drive to 2 days with Marsh. We kind of touched on that earlier, along with the donation drive for the week. And of course, we did have to cancel some of the traditional events at the beginning of the week, such as the pep rally and the CPA sponsored events. But the students, that's what they wanted. They wanted to serve. They were eager to get out and help the community because so many of them were affected. And beyond just our community, I was amazed at the response from outside across Tennessee. We had a truck come in from Chattanooga full of supplies, just out of nowhere, just because they knew people in the area. And that was just really inspiring and proved to me the sense of community, not only within our region, within ETSU and the Tri-Cities, but also just all across Tennessee. And so I was amazed by the student response, the community response, and it was really amazing to be able to give back and help the community in that way. So.
Thank you, Skylar. So my name is Shayna Thompson. I'm a social work major, and I am the president of Letters of Love. I know a couple of you heard a little bit about it this morning, and so I'll talk a little bit about kind of what we did once we heard about the flood. I was actually at work when messages started coming in, and a tidbit about me is that I went to high school in Elizabethton. My house is about 15 minutes away from Irwin, about 10 minutes away from Hampton. So my immediate reaction was getting in touch with my family. I told my boss, I'm really sorry, I gotta go. And I drove home, and I remember just kind of driving down the road, waiting to see, what was gonna be there, what it was gonna look like. Thankfully, my family's okay, and my house is okay because we're on a mountain. But it was very near and dear to my heart. I immediately called our outreach chair for Letters of Love, Abby Simpson, and some of you know her. She's also a Roan Scholar. And we talked about what can we do? How can we, as Letters of Love, who really value small acts of kindness that have a big impact, make an impact in this time? And, Morgan touched on it, or Morgan or Skylar, I think they both did a little bit, but in the immediate aftermath, making sure that we stayed safe and making sure that we were not in the way of first responders. And I was like, well, we could write letters. So I got a phone call from Trent White, as many of you know, and he was like, what can we do? And I was like, well, we will show up to the blood drive. So that's what we did. I had some amazing other student leaders help me prepare us, and we showed up to the blood drive. And I am still in awe of how students, faculty, staff, and community members showed up. Just from the 2 days that we were at the blood drive, we had over 1,000 letters, and it was from little kids who came with their parents who were getting blood to faculty, staff. It was really inspiring, and it just it took my breath away. And then following that, we continued to deliver letters, collect letters. Over 20 student organizations wrote letters and got them to us, and we were able to deliver those. I believe 5, maybe more, organizations outside of the state delivered letters. So that's actually what I have in my hand. Right before I came to this meeting, I got a notification that we had some letters, and these are actually from a school in Georgia. So the reach was truly inspiring. And although it was a very challenging time, it was really impactful to see that I just remember reading some of the notes and just being in awe of the compassion that the students and the staff at our university have. And we delivered many of these letters. So right now we are at 1,800 letters and counting, just in hurricane relief. And it has been an honor to serve as the president of Letters of Love and to see the community come together. So yeah, thank you guys so much for allowing us to talk.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, it inspires me, and the future is in good hands. So thank you guys for all you did, and keep up the good work. It sounds like the letters are going to maybe continue even after the hurricane, right, in other areas?
We actually just dropped off letters to the marching. We actually just dropped off letters to the marching bucks the other day, so we cut out little turkeys for them and congratulated them on what an honor it is to be able to go to the parade. And it was really exciting to be able to drop off letters with smiles on our faces.
Yeah,
So yeah.
terrific.
Chair Latimer, I just have one comment. Anybody that knows me knows I like kids to be in class at school. I want them to be in the classroom. But these 5 days, I think the university did the exact right thing by allowing what they learned in a week is something that's building people, community. It builds you to be good character students. So every student that took advantage of those 5 days, they will never forget those 5 days. So for all the faculty that helped pull this together and staff, this will pay dividends for years. And I appreciate all 3 of you for taking a lead and all of your others that took a lead. Please tell them I appreciate it. Thank you. You did a great job too, by the way.
Any other questions, comments?
Sure. I just wanted to add the same thing. Thank you all for the leadership. I mean, it's amazing what you guys and the whole campus did. I mean, there's no doubt that you guys changed lives. You helped, maybe saved lives. Who knows? Getting letters. Who knows the effect that it had on people. But not only that, and I think this is what Melissa's referring to, it changed the lives of the people that were doing the work too. I mean, I know that's not why you did it, but it has, and especially the students over their lives will remember the impact that they had and the impact probably that it had on them. So thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just note that in addition to serving, leading, and playing a key role in things here on campus, about a week and a half, we learned that one of the 3 individuals in front of us today was appointed by Governor Lee to THAC. So Skylar, congratulations on your appointment to that board. I think the leadership that you've played here was seen at the state level, and thank you for the leadership that you're going to provide representing students all across the 95 counties of Tennessee on the Higher Education Commission.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you, guys. I feel sorry for the presenters that are coming behind you, but Dr. Hoff and Dr. Nolan. Now we're going to have the strategic agenda update and the KPIs from Dr. Hoff.
This will be nowhere near as emotional. Good afternoon, trustees. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present. And please feel free anytime that I'm going through this to ask any questions that you would like to ask. And I'm hoping that we can have a little bit of conversation about what's in here. We always start with the strategic planning pillars. It's important to know the scope of what it is we're talking about and the reason why we've chosen the metrics that we have to measure the institution. The metrics presented here are just a sampling of the KPIs. The strategy, the etsu.edu/strategy page has all of them, and they all pertain to all these pillars. This is the framework within which that happens: access, success, and impact. We focus a lot on research, fiscal responsibility, and inclusion. We educate a diverse student population, socioeconomically, racially, geographically, and that's getting broader every year. And that puts demands on the institution in ways that show up in the KPIs. This is a slide that was asked for specifically, and it shows enrollment and graduation rates from 2014 to 2024. I would like to put this into a little bit of context. If you go back a little bit further than this, you'll see that we were on an upward enrollment trajectory until about 2012. However, the graduation rate, and you can see it down there at the bottom at 43%, was a byproduct of a retention rate that was in the mid-60s. And so in 2013 is when I got here, and so graduation rates started going up then, I think you'll realize. The reality of that is, though, what the institution and many institutions like us were seeing, particularly public regionals, is that we were doing a good job of attracting students, but we were putting them into a system within which they could not be successful. And this institution did something that a lot of people wouldn't, but many of you will understand. They made a business decision to focus on the system before they kept putting more people into it. The byproduct of that was an increase in graduation rates rapidly. Well, if enrollment is based on people being here, then there are two sides to that: getting people in the front door and how fast you get people out. But once we started getting people out faster, our enrollment declined faster. And then we made adjustments to the way we presented the institution. We made changes into the organization with student life and enrollment. And we made recruitment one of the central strategies because we knew we had a better system. And despite the demands that have been placed on that system in the past couple of years, our retention rate still remains in the mid-70s, and our graduation rate has steadily increased. We haven't hit all the goals, but that's where we are from 14 to 24. But I want to pause there and see if anybody has any questions or wants to have a discussion.
Well, I personally asked for this because I remember coming on the board and we were on this upward trajectory and we had this great projection, and then everything kind of changed. So I think this is a fabulous explanation of why things happen, and I really appreciate you sitting behind it. For those people like me that are challenged with numbers and say, look, what's going on? So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of institutions at that time that did that, and there's a lot of institutions that are struggling now financially because retention throughout the courses also provides increases in credit hours throughout the funnel. So freshman credit hours, junior credit hours, and we just heard a presentation in the Finance Committee about us taking a look at that as well as degrees. And so what you can understand is that financially for the institution, it's important to have a distribution of students. That retention rate is a high mark of academic quality. Now we need to do some work on some things, and you'll see some data in the president's presentation that'll talk about where that's going to occur. I'll run through pretty quickly the rest of them. Our goal is to get to 12,000 freshman applications. This fall we were at 10,000. We're looking pretty good in that category. Enrollment at 13.9. The goal is to get to 15.5 by 2026. The chair referenced that at one point we had a goal of 18,000. That was before COVID. That was before a whole lot of things. And to be honest, it was really driven by the drive to 55. The only way for ETSU to have met its drive to 55 goals was to get to 18,000 students. Those have changed a little bit. 15.5 with a consistent retention rate, as well as the stabilization, I think, in the size of the institution and complexity, means that we're in pretty good shape financially. I think you heard that in the Finance Committee today. Out-of-state enrollment is going to continue to be a big focus for us because we're a border institution, and we serve a region that goes beyond that state border. We've seen steady increases in that, and some of that is in international enrollment. We would still like to see the diversity get to 33%, especially on a racial category. Part of that is really related to what we know to be the regional demographic changes that are anticipated through projections. So a lot of these KPIs aren't just about, oh, ETSU is going to drive change in the region. States around us and our state puts out by county regional complexity reports that show what they expect the regional complexity to look like. And all we're doing is setting goals that says that we're going to continue to educate the region we anticipate in the years to come. Percent male is a problem everywhere, and I think that'll continue to be a talking point. And then military affiliated. has gone way up. Part of this is about getting students who have the potential to go to college to realize the benefits they have. We've done an excellent job of making sure that those are made available. You can see retention rate in 2022 was 72, and we're up to 75.6. We would like to, I'm sorry, that says status instead of goal. We'd like to get to 85%. Graduation rate, we would like to get to 60. And post-graduation outcomes, we would like to get to 95. That means students working or going to school. Those are hard numbers to achieve. These three numbers are really difficult. And part of that is because all of these are metrics we're trying to change for students who haven't even entered our institution yet. Some of this comes down to the P20 initiative and making sure that students are ready for college, that they understand the majors that they're selecting, that they know what their career outcomes can be. A lot of this is difficult work. Research, we're really kind of knocking it out of the park when it comes to the total sponsored programs. Research expenditures and the way we account for people's time is moved. Philanthropic giving, you can see that we're hitting some pretty high goals there. Some of these that have goals that were to be determined, they're metrics that we got in recently, and we'll continue to talk about these through 2026 and whether or not they stay and what the goals should be. But we put them on here so that we could start collecting evidence. This is the third year of those metrics for collecting. That gives, does anybody know what 3 years gets you? It's a trend. Now I can start to project out, and we can set some targets with those, so you'll hear about that in the coming presentations around KPIs. But you can see athletic events and attendance at the Martin Center. It shows that we're not only doing what we said we would do by educating students in the institution, but we're taking our expertise outwardly and we're inviting people in. Great colleges to work for, we met that one, so you won't see that anymore. I'm just kidding. We'll continue to do that every year. Although we were recognized this year, there was another metric called the honor roll, and I'm sure that we'll seek that with changes that we have. Voluntary staff turnover has remained high. That's true. Anybody who owns a business knows that that's a hard number to move right now. The percentage of courses taught, the reason that's around 70% is not because we think that we need less full-time faculty exactly. It's because a good percentage of adjunct faculty means you're bringing in experts. It means that you're engaging in emerging fields, these kinds of things. It's part of why that's got to be there. Also, for anybody that does anything with individual focus, music, you know that you need a high degree of people who are experts at certain instruments, things like this, individualized instruction. And then the composite financial index is at a 6. I mean, we could really waste some money and still be okay. The stability of this institution oftentimes doesn't come across when we just talk about it for numbers. But it's incredible. I encourage you anytime you want to ask me for anything that will show you what it looks like at other institutions. People are not having the same conversations. I grew up in Hamilton, Ohio. I was born here, but I grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, and the University of Miami, Ohio called itself an Ivy Public. And no one in Oxford or Hamilton or Cincinnati thought the University of Miami, Ohio would ever have any trouble. They get to pick who they want. They just made a multi-million-dollar budget cut in the last couple of years. We've done an excellent job with your leadership and the leadership team that we have at this institution to provide a good experience. This is where enrollment is projected to be 14.4, not quite 15.5, but we're just 1,000 away, so we're getting there. These results I know the president has presented to you. More of these check marks will be green by the end of the year. There's a lot of things we talk about with academic building. We're talking about things with ETSU health. There's a lot going on that I think by the end of this year we'll have a lot more green check marks on these two slides. I won't cover a lot here. Part of this is in the president's presentation, but this is important to have relative to the KPIs because it's what are you doing in order to see those levers start to move. A lot of this work is about building a strong institution, right, for the long term. It's also about making some decisions and setting some priorities, which is work that you'll be engaged in. And with that, I'll take any questions. Anything at all. Go ahead.
When you think about the region, the affected area, Virginia, Carolina, Tennessee, when you think about the population growth, is population in the last 10 years up 40%, 10%?
No, in the overall catchment area for us, the biggest driving force, it's not quite that high, particularly among college-going populations. Now, you're getting into numbers in the 20s and 30% when you're talking about adults. And I think that the president's going to talk about this a little bit. Part of what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at the way that our enrollment profile breaks out, and we're going to have to change or maybe add to the recruitment strategy to get students who may have started college and been affected in some way, may have started it in another state, moved here. And so how is it we're going to recreate some things around prior learning credit and accelerated degrees in order to make available to them the kind of education that they may be taking advantage of from some large online partners right now.
Does the high school mass population home in geography, or has it been static?
It's pretty stable. Yeah, I mean, from the Northeast to here, it was expected that the entire graduating classes would begin to decline. However, because of the increasing population and the migration, we've seen ours project to be declined, and then people move in, so it stays up. Now, the thing that changed, particularly around COVID, was the college going rate. And FAFSA had an impact on that this year. But our real market is still to increase the college going rate. Even if the population of high school graduates decreased 10%, if we just increase the college going rate 10%, we can sort of solve our own problem. But we have had stability, and not only that, we've had stability as far as we still have quality high schools in the area that are getting high rankings. The quality of education is high. Some of the problems that we saw, I think, in the admissions populations 20 years ago are being alleviated by work we're doing with the college education and others. So it's sort of two-pronged. One, it's the population stayed stable. The decline that we expected to have of people coming to college was accelerated by COVID, which impacted the college going rate. But the work that Dr. Sherlin and his team have done has really made that.
You know, when you look at numbers and you classic charts, you show growth, you know, do you look back 10 years from now and realize that growth was staying the same because everybody else is shrinking? You know, and you can get caught up with not achieving a goal when in fact you overachieved the goal. You just set the metrics wrong when other people were under.
That's the whole idea behind the 18.5 or 18 versus the 15.5. I mean, we're really kind of knocking it out of the park on a lot of things, particularly among first-time freshmen. The percentage of students that we're getting in our area relative to schools in Nashville and even some other bigger cities, we were punishing ourselves by looking too far ahead, to your point, at a metric, when in reality we were achieving a percentage-wise higher success than the peers. We'll get into some of those numbers based on the chart the chair asked me to create this time. In the next time, we'll create some around adult students, some around 18-year-olds, some around dual enrollment, so you can see a little bit more of that clearly, if that makes sense. Other questions?
One question. On the student success slide, the post-graduation outcomes
Yeah.
percentage for 2024 for continuing education or working is lower. Is
Yes.
that because they have one less year out? How are you?
Yes. So part of this is a byproduct of the length of time that they have had to make a decision and the survey collection period. The other thing is, in the most recent cycle, we don't have a provider that will purchase data. So in the first cycle, not only did we do the first destination survey, but we bought outcomes data from a provider. And I know that we're still talking about doing that again. So the real number may be a little bit higher, and once we partner with somebody that can fill in the gaps, what they do is they scan LinkedIn and other postings to find students of ours who may not have responded to our survey but have actually found employment or enrolled in school, and then they report that back to us.
Okay.
So that number that you see there for this year may change again once I get that data.
Yeah, that one looked a little scary to me, but.
So I should have mentioned that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hoff. And now Dr. Nolan will present his president's report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. I want to begin this presentation as I do with every, which is reminding us why we're here. Last month, we celebrated Founders Day, a day in which we reflected on the work of the institution and the mission of the university over the course of the past more than 100 years to serve the people of the region. But as you heard from our student panel, that mission is more than just raising educational attainment levels. That mission is truly about touching the lives of the people of this region. And I think during the month of October, we saw that mission embodied in a way probably more strongly than I've ever had the opportunity to see that mission embodied during my tenure as president. Dr. Hoff already mentioned the strategic planning framework, so I'm going to jump in with a little bit more detail on some of the data that he just outlined in the KPI overview. This is a picture of our freshman class gathered together during preview at the football stadium. But before talking about that class, I want to talk about the class of 24 across the nation. At the THEC meeting last week, they presented information on some of the challenges that institutions are facing as it relates to this year's class. The demographic cliff, which has been mentioned, the complete disaster that was the rollout of the FAFSA that limited institutions, including your own, from being able to package aid until well into May, declining college-going rates, and all of the elements in the press about the lack of a return on a college degree have impacted outcomes. Nationally, freshman enrollment declined 5% this fall year after year, and the largest decreases were in public universities at 8.5%. In rural areas such as ours, you're seeing college-going rates below 40%, and for the male demographic, those numbers in many rural counties across the nation are below 35%. So when you talk to students about what they're wanting to do after they graduate from college, it's a muddled conversation. But then when you talk to their parents about what they aspire for their children, it's also a muddled conversation, because the things that they're getting on social media and in the general media as a whole are really impacting the way that they see institutions such as ourselves and the academy as a whole. So all of this is a dynamic environment that we're trying to operate and plan through. But let's drill down a little bit more. When you talk to students about what they're looking for when they make their college choice decision, and this was a national survey from EAB, more than 10,000 students were surveyed, location's still a top choice. Elements around price are determinant factors, financial aid and then affordable tuition. But look at the number 4 category, a campus. So as you look at the investment that this board has made in the physical infrastructure of the university, all of this is linked together. Our changes to financial aid, our changes to our out-of-state fee structure, all of this helps to position us so that when students are making decisions about where to go, that we have the tools in our toolbox that allow us to put forward a presentation that is competitive. Dr. Hoff referenced the college-going rate, so there it is statewide. And then here it is in our region. Once again, the highest college-going rate is in Unicoi County, but as you look to Hancock County, 46.3%. So if you look at the male demographic there, that number is going to be less than 35%. And that's the college-going rate by gender across the state. So these are things, once again, that as we're putting our recruitment plans together, that we're utilizing to drive those recruitment efforts. I want to talk a little bit about enrollment from a historic perspective. 1984, I was in high school. Life was simple and music was good. But in 1984, we had around 10,000 students here. Now, fast forward to 2023, you've got about 13,600. Tennessee State University, for example, back then had 7,600 students. TSU in 23 had 8,200. And you can see some places like Memphis relatively stable. Other places like Middle, where Nashville boomed, they grew accordingly. But just as that is a context, now let's look at this fall. This fall, you see us right around 14,000 students. You see TSU at 6,300 students. You've got to go back to the mid-1970s to see an enrollment at that institution of that size. But also look at the first-time freshman number. There are more first-time freshmen enrolled at East Tennessee State University than there are at the University of Memphis. So as you look at these numbers and put them in a historic context, that provides for you a sense of not only how we're approaching current budgets, but how we're using this information to drive budgets in a forward-facing orientation. So here's our class at the institution, our top undergraduate programs and our top graduate programs. You can see once again movement in the undergraduate level. Just as a frame of reference, that 2,400 students at the graduate, last year was the largest class of graduate students in the history of the university. So the fact that we're still sitting at 2,400 students is a pretty positive number, even though you may be wondering, well, why are we down? Well, we're down over the biggest class ever. As you look particularly at the freshman class, This is the first time in our institution's history that we've had back-to-back classes over 2,100 students. And as we've grown, we've also enhanced the academic profile of that freshman class. And you see the adjustments in the out-of-state population. That is a direct result of the actions of this board to reset out-of-state tuition. As you look at the university as a whole, you then see that growth in out-of-state students at the university. But now let's step back again to that year 1984. You see in 1984, our overall enrollment, 9,869. The bellwether year is 2012, highest enrollment in the history of the university. And then I got here and it went all downhill. But you see 15,286 students. But now look at the age breaks. There were 12,212 students 25 and under then, and there's 12,112 students under 25 now. We've held our own in that space. Where's the decline? 25 and up. There are 1,400 fewer students at this institution in that demographic. So now the question becomes, how do we begin to reach that market moving forward? That's one of the reasons why in college reorg, we created a school focused on continuing professional studies. That's why as we move forward in the next year, we're going to look at our off-campus locations. We need to look at scholarships. We need to look at how we connect with programs like Reconnect. But as you look at our enrollment goals and start to unpack, we've kept pace where we put our focus. We put our focus on freshmen, on resident experience, and on this campus. We need to continue to keep our focus there, but in order to hit some of the goals that this board has set and hit the goals that the region needs from a workforce perspective, these are some of the ways that we're starting to look at data long-term rather than short-term so that you've got a better sense of where we've been and where it is we think we want to go. Dr. Hoff already presented this information. All the indicators are we'll be in solid shape going into the fall, and that is supported by our application data. Dr. Levesque provided this to us yesterday, but year over year, our applications are up about 850. So if things continue to trend in the direction that they'll trend, next year our freshman class and overall enrollment as a whole should be in pretty solid shape. And I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions on the enrollment-related information that Dr. Hoff and I have presented. Any questions about enrollment? Okay, well then I'll jump into the next segment on student success. Here's our retention rates, moving back up post-COVID. We still have significant gaps by demographic group. But when you compare us to other institutions across the state, and these numbers are different, here is start at ETSU, return at ETSU. This is the THEC data, start at ETSU, return anywhere. We're making progress towards the board's goal of 85%. Here's our graduation rate, start at ETSU, return at ETSU. For the class of 2018, that graduation rate is 53%. And then for the THEC data, a year lag, start at ETSU, graduate anywhere, that number's at 57%. So work to do to get to the board's goal of 60, but just giving you a context of where we sit at this moment. Move into the next segment. Today we talked at length about October revised budgets. Just as a refresher, here's the budget for your university. All revenues in, minus auxiliaries is $400 million. 42% from fees, 41% from the state. The bulk of those expenditures are in salaries, and we are making investments not only in salaries, but in reserves as well as in fallout. And I just want to note that we continue to make investments in our rainy day fund. That rainy day fund is now approaching $30 million because one day it will rain, and this will allow us to buffer that turbulence. I want to shine a spotlight on the action that the board took earlier today in the Finance Committee to approve the salary recommendations that were presented to you. Those salary recommendations will be distributed as follows. A 3% across-the-board increase with a $7,000 ceiling and a floor of $15 per hour. That will be effective November 1. Phase 2 is adjusted enhancements to align with market needs. We're implementing a new classification and compensation system, as individuals are slotted into job families and those job families are then benchmarked against market rates. We'll take a portion of these resources, right at $3.2 million, and direct them towards those market gaps. Concurrently, we will look at market gaps by salary and make faculty salary adjustments to begin to close market gaps. The faculty salary adjustments will be retroactive to November 1. So we're going to do that in the spring. It's going to take some time to get it right. But once the adjustments are made, we'll make those back retroactive to the effective date of the across the boards. And then the other 1% pool is a target. I've challenged every dean and every vice president to look at efficiencies and to take those efficiencies and to invest them in salary. So I'm pretty confident above the resources that the board identified today that we'll find another 1% pool to bring a total investment in salaries at the institution to over 6%, which is the largest one-year investment in salary in the history of the university. So I'm going to pause to see if there are any questions on this salary item.
The rainy day fund, the level of it, does the state know the level of it, and does it show it anywhere?
The state sees the level of resources that we have in reserves, both in terms of what we call a rainy day, which is our educational in general, i.e. unrestricted reserve account. But then they also see the reserves that we have in plant funds, where we've received money to build buildings we've not started construction on, where we're putting monies for auxiliaries, et cetera. So they see those and ask questions. I presented the budget on behalf of the universities to Governor Lee this week, and in the hallway, one of his staff asked me about reserve accounts. And I know when we're back in Nashville in the spring, they'll ask questions about reserve accounts. My response has been the state has a rainy day fund, and we do as well. It's a directive that our board has sent for it to be at 10%. To date, there's not been a desire by the state to sweep. And I hope it stays that way. But yes, sir, they ask questions about the why every year. So just on salary, to give a sense of why this is important, and you all have heard me joke, and my jokes are stale, so I'll use them again. I'm competitive. It drives me insane that our salaries are below Marshall. Absolutely drives me insane. So if at anything, I'd like to beat the green. Both for staff salaries as well as for faculty salaries. But if we're going to recruit faculty to this institution, we've got to move these numbers, and there's no other way around it. So we'll pull up and talk a little bit about state funding. Just as a point of context, this is the level of investment that we receive from the state for the current academic year, and then you can track that back to 20 and 21. This story is different than what you see in many states across the nation. This is a more than $200 million increase in operating funds from the state. And you see the investments that the state has made in our university. Here's that recommendation for this year. This year's a little bit leaner. So you see $1 million in outcome resources. What's not shown here is the salary enhancement. So there's a pool for a 2.5% salary enhancement. But all in, I don't know why this keeps moving. I'm not touching anything. But that is what the state is recommending through THEC for next year. And here's what the state is recommending for the medical units. So you can see historic up top, and then the recommended change for the medical units down below. So this is what the outcomes formula recommends, about a 1% increase in our base budget. And then a rounding up, we'll be generous, call that about a 1% increase if we round up on the med sides. But that's not the complete recommendation from the Higher Education Commission. This is a little tight. I apologize. You can't see the text. I kind of cut and pasted from the THEC agenda items. But you'll see that THEC is recommending $2.5 million in increased appropriations to the base for the Gatton College of Pharmacy. This would allow for the equalization of tuition and fees at Gatton to UT. But then also at the bottom, you see $7 million in funding for the Quillen College of Medicine for medical equipment modernization. The state is building a formula for the med units the same way they've built a formula for the general units such as us. So this is, in some respects, getting the base right for the College of Medicine as it moves forward. So these are items that we'll be working with THEC on as we go through the session. the support for Gatton and the support for the College of Medicine. Here are the capital projects. Brown Hall is the number 3 project on THEC's list that will go to the governor. And I'm hopeful that after the governor saw the chemistry labs, the biology labs, the vertebrate zoology lab, as well as Dr. Bidwell's lab. And it's always wonderful when the dean of the college takes the governor on a tour and says, this is my lab, and his lab is just as dumpy as everyone else's. It made for a pretty good story. And if you spent time around Dr. Bidwell, he's an extremely impressive individual, and he did a wonderful job of showing that building and telling the story of its importance. So I'm not going to say that that is going to push us over the edge, but we had a significant number of our legislative delegation also tour the building throughout the fall, and I'm hopeful that those tours will provide an impetus for the full funding of this badly needed renovation to our science building. Here's the deferred maintenance request, and you see where, if it was fully funded, where those projects would go. THEC is requesting $23.5 million. Last year we got about $9.5, and the bulk of that goes to things like steam line replacements, HVAC, plumbing, et cetera. But I want to go back up to this list for a minute, because the state allowed institutions to submit multiple projects. And in addition to the resubmission of Brown Hall, we submitted a utility infrastructure project. Steam lines, electrical, the things behind the scenes and under the ground that make the university run. This was the top scored project in the state. The only capital project that was newly submitted to receive a perfect score of 100. So that is that ETSU project that's sitting at 6. Everything 1 through 5 was a recurrence of last year. So just to give you visibility on why there's a second project, the state allowed us to submit 2. And we felt, let's put some things in that have long-lasting impact that the state rarely funds, which are steam lines, utility grids, et cetera. So that is that second project on the list. Before transitioning, let me pause to see if there are any questions on the capital projects or the THEC recommendations. So strategic initiatives. This is Brown Hall. Hopefully in 4 years, we're all gathered out in front of this new entrance and cutting a ribbon. Right now, that entrance is obscured by shrubbery. So part of the renovation would be to open the building to give a proper entrance to our science facilities. But all of this work is predicated on the strategic plan, and you saw this slide from Dr. Hoff. You saw this information from Dr. Hoff as well, but I want to show it again because I know it's a strategic priority of the board to grow our investments in research. Those sponsored award levels are the highest in the history of the university. Our research expenditures are the highest in the history of the university. And this is the first time in the history of the university that we've been recognized as a great college to work for. But all of this work fits into this framework that Dr. Hoff shared with you. The budget model optimization that staff presented this morning, the work of changing the way in which we incentivize the internal distribution of revenue, it's part of this strategic initiative. The Voyager ERP, all of this work is integrated. The new class and comp system is integrated into Voyager. All of this is a structured manner in which the leadership team is driving change across these areas to allow us to hit those KPIs that Dr. Hoff presented. None of this exists in isolation. It's all in an integrated framework. Our legislative agenda is pretty straightforward. We want to support full funding of the THEC rec. We want to support the THEC recommendation around Gatton and Quillen. We'd like to see full funding for phase 2 of Brown Hall. And then the state is also recommending some changes to the lottery scholarship program that will enhance the purchasing power of the lottery program. So we are supportive of all of those initiatives. You've heard a lot about our outreach efforts for Helene, and I'm not going to go into too great a detail, but I do want to share a couple of numbers. And the board also often asks, how can we help? And I think after you hear the numbers, you'll get a sense of where you can help. But as Dr. Sherlin noted, we had 10 students who lost family members or loved ones, 2 who lost their parents. We had 37 students who were displaced by the flood. We had 41 students who lost their jobs. We had 56 students that we've supported through our Campus Crisis Fund. We've had 18 students that we've supported through our Tuition Assistance Fund. And we've supported so many in faculty and staff with outstanding needs that we've about exhausted those funds. So out of university resources, we've pushed more than $100,000 out to flood victims. We've had individuals who've contributed and donated. Denart Construction, who built the Martin Center, contributed $10,000 towards the Student Crisis Fund. So if you are looking for ways that you can directly support this institution, I would encourage you to look towards the Employee Assistance Fund and the Student Crisis Fund, because the needs of our students are going to go into the out years, not just this fall. But this is Veterans Week on campus. In fact, at the conclusion of this board meeting, I hope that we all can make our way down to the Veterans Memorial Plaza to formally recognize and celebrate Veterans Day. We have more than 1,000 students at this university who are military affiliated. We have the top ROTC program east of the Mississippi on this campus. This is an institution that is recognized nationally for its commitment to our veteran community and our veteran students. We just recently received a $75,000 grant through AmeriCorps to help with our outreach across a 7-county area. But it's more than just the work that we do with students. It's work that we do for the veteran community as a whole. The Martin Center for the Arts regularly donates tickets to veterans through VetTix to ensure that they and their families have the opportunity to avail themselves of the wonderful things that occur at that entity. But it's more than just this. I've had the chance over the course of this fall to watch those who serve our veteran students really do their work. And at the budget hearing on Tuesday, at the close of the budget hearing, Governor Lee asked the other presidents of the room if they had anything to say. I think he wanted to hear from someone other than me. And when President McPhee stood to talk, he said, "Governor, if there's one thing that I would encourage you to do, it would be to focus on the mental health needs of our students." Because at Middle Tennessee State University last week, they had a student commit suicide in their library. Tennessee Tech had a student who committed suicide earlier this month. But we've had multiple suicide attempts on campus by veterans. But who has worked with them on the front end and on the back end to support them and their families? Dan Bishop. So this just isn't about recruitment. It is about supporting students on good days as well as bad. And that's what I'm proud of our staff for doing. If there's anything that's run through in this presentation up to the upcoming events, it's a sense of the difference of this institution. And I'm not just saying this isn't my attempt for some feel-good PR moment. It's what I've seen this month. When I came into this building on the Monday after the storms and saw students in the hallway, I couldn't wrap my brain around it. But when I heard that we had called every single student or emailed every single student to touch because we hadn't heard of them, places don't do that. Our family medicine, when they couldn't get in contact with their patients, what did our docs and ETSU family medicine do? They went and did house calls to do welfare checks on patients that they couldn't get in contact with. And as we look at things that move through this institution, we're big enough to have all the moving parts, but small enough to have a small school feel. But it's that caring and touch that drives the difference here. And it's that caring and touch that, as I look back at this fall, from the work that people like Dan Bishop has done to assist veterans and families in need, to the work that Michelle Bird has done to assist families throughout the fall, to the work that Nathan Farner and Joy Fulkerson have done to lead outreach efforts, you should be proud of the fact that your staff went above and beyond in October to embody the mission of this institution. So let's look forward. Tonight, I hope you can join us for our Alumni Awards event. A person who used to give a lot of presentations to this board, B.J. King, will be back on campus to be recognized, as will Larry Calhoun, will be named an honorable alum of the institution. We've already referenced the campus lighting ceremony next Monday. For those who want to come out at 10:45 on Sunday night to well-wish the band, they could use the well-wishing. I'm already going to be in New York to welcome them, but I'm excited to be there, as many of us are. The holiday concert on the 12th, I hope that you can join us. Once again, Don and I invite you, the Foundation Board and the Alumni Board, to a joint dinner, and then we'll have the opportunity to hear the outstanding welcoming of the holiday season. If you're also looking for something to do late night, you can join Dr. Sherlin and myself on the 9th as we serve pancakes for like the 157th time. His pancakes are much better than mine. And then on the 14th will be commencement. In the end, I want to close by saying thank you, but not thank you to the board, but thank you to our employees. These are scenes from our employee recognition ceremony that we had in October, where we recognized employees for 5, 10, 15, up to 50 years of service. You see Doug Taylor there. Many of you know Doug. He's welcome to every single class of the Quillen College of Medicine since it's opened its doors. But these are individuals who've given their lives and careers to this university. Individuals who worked at the same place for 50 years because they believed in the mission. And I thank you for the opportunity to tell their stories today. I'd be happy to take any questions from the board.
Questions?
This is
Okay.
my Ferris Bueller moment, which Trent had never seen. I was like, if you're going to Chicago, you've got to see some Chicago things. So we gave him a briefing on the Bears and on the Bulls and on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So maybe if in small talk today, some of that is coming through. But that concludes my report. And Madam Chair, members of the board, if I could, I would like to draw your attention to the next item on the agenda, which is an opportunity for us to say thank you to someone who has helped to change the face of our university. So if you give me 1 second. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, the next item on the agenda is a resolution of appreciation for Pam Ritter. As many of you know, Ms. Ritter has announced her retirement from the institution, and there's a resolution in here that appropriately frames Pam's contributions to the university. But I want to set this resolution and that work within a little bit of a different context. And Pam, I'm going to ask you to come up in a moment, but I don't want to make you stand here while I embarrass you. But I want you to go back with me a decade and a half ago. A decade and a half ago, we annually raised about $7 to $10 million. We had a 500-person foundation board. We had 3 advancement officers and 2 staff. We had a very decentralized system. And we brought in some outside consultants who said, you need to modernize your board, you need to modernize your structure, and if you want to realize the goals for this university, you need to bring in a professional to professionalize your institution. And we ran a national search, and that is what we did. And over the course of Pam's tenure, she has changed the way in which advancement services at this institution are run. Embedded advancement officers in every college, record-breaking fundraising years, year after year after year, a capital campaign that set a record for this institution. But it's more than numbers. We stand in a building through which resources were generated through Pam and her team to help make this possible. All across campus, from the Commons to Brown Hall to Lamb Hall, to in fact the band who led that fundraising campaign, Pam and her team. So there are resolutions that say things, and there are numbers that tell stories. But the true impact of Pam and her leadership team can't be reflected in either of those. It is impacted in the manner in which she changed the face of philanthropy at this university. We've got big shoes to fill for whoever comes next. But Pam, if you would please join me up front on behalf of the board, it is my honor to present you with this resolution of appreciation for all of the work and contribution that you have provided to this institution and for the manner in which you've driven change at ETSU. Pam, thank you for all you've done for our university.
Thank you so much.
Great.
First of all, I only wear a size 6, so they won't be that hard to fill. Second of all, I can't thank you enough, Dr. Nolan, for bringing me here. I'm a builder, and I love building programs. I love building things. So what I've been able to accomplish here has been great fun for me. Board, it's been wonderful working with all of you and getting to know you. I appreciate that, Board of Trustees. My foundation board is listen to me. The foundation board is fabulous. They work very, very hard. There's an investment committee in part of that board that has really done a lot to help us grow the endowment, and I'm very proud of that. I have had the privilege of developing a team. John King, Whitney Getz have helped me build that team. Both of you, I'm probably going to miss you more than any. It's been a lot of fun. So all I can say is thank you. Who gets a chance in late in life and I am older than you think, late in life to start from scratch and build something brand new. It's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Several have said, so what's next, Pam? What's your next adventure? Well, I'm going to retire. I really am. I'm going to join my husband in that retirement. We're staying here in Tennessee because, as I've told several of my colleagues, the Appalachian Mountains, the Appalachian region, is the fountain of youth. And so we're staying here. We're going to hike. We're going to bike. We're going to enjoy the lakes. We'll continue to enjoy the activities at East Tennessee State University. And hopefully I'll get to see all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam. We are required that the Board of Trustees make a motion to adopt the resolution extending heartfelt appreciation to Mrs. Pamela S. Ritter. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any other business that needs to come before us today? No? Well, if not, I think I need a motion to adjourn. Second? Second. Adjourn.